Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Henrik here together with Reinhardt, Red Eyes TV. Thank you for tuning in. This is a breaking update regarding the Pizzagate story that we have been, together with countless other brilliant independent investigators and researchers, been following since it surfaced about a month ago. I mean, this is something that's been going on for some time, but it had actually come to the headway. It's come to a culmination point where there is so much information coming out about Pizzagate that it seems that the mainstream media is basically panicking. It doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how to cover this issue. And of course, now they have been given exactly what they wanted with this shooter that walked into, the supposed shooter that walked into Comet Ping Pong, the pizza place in Washington, D.C. His name is Edgar Madison Welch, who has, according to the press, been traveling from North Carolina, walked in to this pizza place after he read information online to investigate this for himself, and supposedly started shooting around. We're going to talk a bit more about this and break this down here together with Reinhardt. The media has gotten what they've wanted. They have refused to look at the evidence that has been presented, the independent evidence, and managed to dismiss the whole thing without even bringing any of it up. This is now what crazy conspiracy theorists are into. They will basically jumble all this together with the mindset of Edgar Madison Welch. But so many independent people have actually started to dig out information, and now there's so many tangents to this thing that it's actually difficult to read it all in and actually get a good overview of how deep this story goes. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. There are many pieces of evidence to examine, and I think there's a lot of kind of misinformation out there. People are, taking certain emails and trying to tie them in to the Pizzagate scandal. I think not all of the emails that people are using are, in fact, evidence of this kind of pedophile ring. But yeah, we are seeing a very strong attempt from the mainstream media to kind of clamp down and essentially shut down any further inquiry into what is, has been termed Pizzagate.
Yeah, so let's take a look at a clip out of CNN that has reported now on this situation in a very, incredibly dishonest way, and the way that they've thrown everything out.
New details tonight into the 28-year-old arrested for opening fire inside a Washington, D.C. restaurant because, according to police, he wanted to investigate a fringe conspiracy theory involving Hillary Clinton. Edgar Welch making his first court appearance today. According to police, he entered the restaurant after reading that Clinton and her campaign were running a child sex ring inside. Of course, that story was completely false. The White House attacking these baseless claims today, saying they're having a corrosive effect on America's political debate.
Fake news, real gunfire. A North Carolina man arrested in a D.C. pizza shop after brandishing a gun, telling police he was there to investigate a conspiracy theory called Pizzagate.
We actually thought initially that he was a staff member because he was walking straight for that back room. Staff member, kind of looked at me and indicated that this was a gunman.
According to police, Welch said that he had read online that the Comet Ping Pong restaurant was harboring child sex slaves, and that he wanted to see for himself if they were there. The suspect said he was armed to help rescue them. The accusation came from this unhinged story that originated online days before the election, saying that Hillary Clinton and her campaign chairman John Podesta were operating a child sex ring. The lie took root in the digital swamps of Twitter and far right-wing websites. Others latched onto this, seemingly hoping it was true, scouring dark corners of the web for possible clues. This is how conspiracy theories are threaded together, lie by lie.
All right, let's just stop there a little bit. So this is the kind of reporting we're getting out of CNN. So basically, without examining any of the details, any of the information that actually so many people have dug up from the Instagram accounts, it's circumstantial evidence. Yes, we don't have maybe a child, a witness that directly says, yes, I was molested at this place or something like that. But we've talked about this now. You've done videos on this. Even Andrew Breitbart knew about this. He detailed Podesta. There's so much that if they just looked at a few of these videos, they would have to refute some of these points, but they don't even address it. These are false. These are baseless claims. These are lies. These are everything, and this is all we're getting out of CNN.
Yeah, there's some very interesting strategies that they're employing here. So the conspiracy theory label is one that they've been using for quite some time to essentially say that a story is fake. We all know that people, be it in in clubs or in interpersonal relationships, also in governments and in positions of power, do tend to conspire from time to time. To think that people never conspire under any circumstances is it would be pretty absurd to suggest that. So by labeling something a conspiracy theory, they're able to tell people to not think any further about it. And I think it had something to do with the course that the election took, that the conspiracy theory label isn't as powerful as it once was. So now they're adopting the fake news label to essentially force people to stop thinking about these kinds of issues, don't examine the evidence, just kind of essentially accept our narrative on the topic, essentially on faith. They don't want you thinking about it. They want you to just pretty much eat up whatever they're telling you.
The interesting thing here about the culprit, Edgar Madison Welch, is that, well, there's a couple of things we can just quickly go through before we watch some more of the CNN piece, the hit piece on this incredible story that has been, I think that it's been catching tremendous amounts of headwind, if you will. There's so many people looking into it now. There's so many angles, and it's just caught them off guard. And I truly think that this is, whether, I don't have any proof that this guy was in on it or that this is a false flag. They're even addressing that later in the clip. But one of the details which is interesting with him is that he was actually caught hitting a teenager with his car earlier in October. Police have detailed this. There is a possibility that he was basically handed or cut a deal here where he said, you go with us or you help us out in this situation, and we can get you off this, we can get you off basically. But one of the other angles, Reinhardt, was of course the actor angle as well, that he was actually, I think he has a father that is a producer of movies. He's been just in a couple of things, but he's the Mill was one of the big ones, A Tale About Bootlegging, and also The Bleeding, which is, of course, this is the telltale sign of what these false flaggers are usually going to these days, the actor angle. And he actually is an actor. Amazing, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, it's definitely cause for suspicion.
Yeah, and has an IMDb profile and everything. So, who knows? The strange thing, reports that came out, though, is that he's walked into the pizza place. He doesn't seem to have done anything really in there. All the people that were in the pizza place, they walked out, and then supposedly he's starting to shoot around in the building, and then he surrenders, and basically police come and arrest him. It's a very odd story, to be honest. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it is quite odd. Just the image of him walking in there kind of nonchalantly, everyone running out. And then after everyone's left, the official story is that he, takes out his assault rifle and just starts, I guess, shooting the wall, shooting the floor. We don't know what he was shooting. There were no people in there. And then he comes out and he peacefully surrenders. It's all very, very strange. I'm kind of at a loss to explain why he would do this, assuming that his motivations are, in fact, sincere, and the mainstream media narrative is correct, that he went there to try to liberate these kids. I just don't see that as being it's very odd. It doesn't strike me as being very likely.
Very strange. And one of the guys, of course, that actually reported on this was his name was Sharif Silmi. He was interviewed in the CNN piece, and supposedly he actually scrubbed one of his tweets, which could be found on Wayback Machine, where he said, as developing reports on this, he said, "I was at Comet, one of the last 3 people out, and we did not see or hear shots fired." That is a shocking development. So, again, very interesting, the fact that he doesn't seem to have actually shot anything, and at this point, we're basically, again, we're just trusting the police and their reports. What are they saying? Why are they saying these things? Basically, my point here is that if there was a true investigation that could be had here of citizen journalists and everything else, that's out the window now because of this, basically. The location is shut down, and James Alefantis, the owner of Comet Ping Pong and stuff like this, he's basically, I see this as a way of giving him the kind of protection, if you will, that he needs to prevent this from going anything further, effectively shutting down investigation into this ring. This was an entry point through that firewall, if you will, and now that's out the window.
Yeah, it is, and it's unfortunate, but I don't think anyone was ever supposed to stumble across this information. I don't think they were prepared for people to uncover, the evidence behind Pizzagate, and so they're doing. I think it's very likely that what they're doing right now is, shutting things down as much as they can.
Exactly. Let's look at the CNN piece a bit more here, folks.
Eventually, a name stuck: Pizzagate. And the believers started harassing the owner of the pizza place.
We've received many calls, but really they're from around the world, so we didn't expect anyone to come.
On Sunday, the suspect fired his weapon. No one was hurt. With detectives still on the scene in D.C., Pizzagate believers were already claiming that this real development was just part of a cover-up.
The media is claiming that this is because of Pizzagate. This is very dangerous fake news. Anybody claiming that the gunman today at Comet Pizza had anything to do with Pizzagate is lying.
It's just take a step to think about what he just said.
Yeah.
The guy who went in with the gun, all right, and discharged it, he said that he went in because of this story,
yes,
this fake story.
Right.
That guy there that we just heard said that's completely made up. What is it? The gunman was an actor? I mean, what is this?
These Pizzagate believers, some of them today say this was all a hoax. This incident, this real life incident at the pizza shop was all made up, trying to cover up the real conspiracy.
Well, we're not saying that the story that it's made up, that it didn't happen. That this is this narrative that they're running with, somehow delegitimizing the very concept, or trying to make it seem irrational. There's we're not claiming that it didn't take place in physical reality, and of course it did. But it's how do you explain to some of these people that are so used to just taking the narrative as it is, or steering it in their direction, to just kind of launch this idea that what if he was just there as a part of a thing, of a gimmick, there are sting operations, there are embezzlements, these kinds of various situations where they set people up, etc. And considering that he was a felon, it's very plausible, but there's just there's no chance, there's no chance that any of this can be in this way, right?
Yeah, right. And regardless of what people think about Sandy Hook and some of the other, false flag shootings, or shootings that have, supposedly been false flags, for those to have been, successful false flags, that would have required an immense amount of planning. And now I'm not saying that it did or didn't turn out that way, but the point being, the reason I'm bringing that up is because it would be incredibly easy for them to set this up as a false flag. They just needed the guy to show up and shoot, or maybe not even shoot, according to, that one gentleman's tweets. And then they'd arrest him. I mean, it doesn't require dead bodies. It doesn't require, a bunch of faked evidence and whatnot. It would be, a walk in the park, honestly, to set something like this up.
Yeah, it could be an active shooter kind of scenario. We don't know. I mean, we can't just assume that this is what happens every time either. There could be a number of things going on here, but just this idea that we have to entertain the idea and be, there's reason to be suspicious. And of course, I'm not saying either that there aren't crazy people and wackos. And I mean, we were also going to send a reporter to Comet Pizza to ask some people questions, maybe more on the outside, because there's already been people that have been kicked out of Comet Ping Pong. They've been, periscoping from the inside and things like that. It seems to be a tense situation, and many more people have visited him. So it seems that this was, if nothing else, one of the most convenient things that can occur, both for James Alefantis, but also the whole establishment that is tied to this and so many other joints around on this street in Connecticut Avenue.
And I think their motivations for doing this is they're going to use this as an experience, as a justification for shutting down, any further investigation into this kind of stuff. Honestly, on social media, if they ban all of this from Reddit, they already shut down the Pizzagate subreddit. That's right. They ban anything on Reddit, anything on Twitter, anything on Facebook. That's frankly, I mean, that's how this kind of stuff spread. 4chan was obviously a big part of how this information came to light, but obviously, 4chan and 8chan are a little harder to censor. The point being, though, is that they're tying, now that this happened, regardless of what really happened, they are going to tie any further inquiry into this matter with violent extremism. And that's the same strategy they do for white interests. Anyone who is advocating, white interests, even if it's, a very tame way of doing so, they tie that, they say that is inextricably linked to violence and extremism. So we're going to see the same thing kind of happening here with Pizzagate in light of the recent shooting, or alleged shooting rather.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see I edited this up, but they did bring up Alex Jones in the clip. They of course have Thurnovich in there too, and a couple of other people, which they try to pin this on. Even the heavy articles that went through some of the details of this gentleman details the very fact. They say that on his Facebook page, Welch, quote, likes conspiracy theorist Alex Jones and his website Infowars, and has posted anti-Muslim videos in the past. I even heard people earlier in a CNN segment talking about how the alt-right lie factory and things like that. There's this whole association that they can make with a story like this, lump it all together and throw it out as utter nonsense. And it feels a pushback. It feels like this is a desperate attempt at trying to stop the sliding credibility of the mainstream media. The problem, though, is that they're just digging their hole deeper when they do stuff like this, because it's so disingenuous, Yeah,
they absolutely are digging their hole deeper, as you put it. Over the course of the last year, the media has effectively delegitimized themselves rather, and Trump has been a big factor in that process. And that Gallup poll, it shows that right now about 32% of Americans trust the mainstream media, and most of those are liberals. Frankly, 14% of Republicans actually trust the media, and it was I think it was 8 to 10 percentage points higher this time last year. So, I mean, that really just shows you how fast that this is progressing. And I think the whole fake news thing is just so absurd. It's not like they're actually breaking down these, the evidence for Pizzagate or any other, quote unquote, fake news story. And they're proving through rational means that these are fake stories. Once again, they're expecting you to accept these things on faith. And, people see it now. People have already been, very anti-mainstream media for quite some time. And as that poll shows, that has only continued to increase. So I don't see any reason why that, 32% isn't going to drop to, who knows, 20% by, this time next year.
The thing, though, is that, you're not asked to prove a negative, as they say in rationale and reasoning. But in this case, so much evidence has been produced. And it's this idea that, if we just don't address it or touch it, it doesn't exist. And it's not as easy as that. They can't get away with that, but they're trying to. But I think, again, it just hurts their credibility. Let's just watch a little bit more of the CNN report here.
Those people are not going to believe this report. Hopefully, the vast majority of people still on planet Earth can deal with the truth. And
it's also this demeaning thing that, anyone who takes any of this seriously is basically a nut job, and they don't even live on planet Earth. That's the mentality. That's the demeaning attitude they have, that we're in our ivory tower and we're correct. And again, as you said, there's no actually addressing any of the claims or the evidence that's been presented. He says it's false, it's lies, fake news, fake news, fake news. It's all they have, repetitive.
Yeah, exactly. And as we touched on in a previous video going into Pizzagate, to them, essentially the whole idea of there being, an elaborate pedophile network, involving the international elite is that just suggesting that even exists is enough to, shut down the whole inquiry into the matter.
Yep.
But we know that, people like Epstein, people like Jimmy Savile, and many other politicians and, very influential people have been involved in these things. We do know that they exist. So we are essentially trying to, can you really blame us for trying to look behind the curtain? It's hard to think of anything more repugnant than, the sexual trafficking of children. So I think that, in a more healthy society, let's be honest, it would be the police investigating Comet Pizza. It wouldn't be, us from, across the world behind our computer screens. I think there's so much evidence that, if we had the right authorities, the right people in power, they would, at the very least, take a look. We don't have to go in there, guns blazing and, arresting people and, kicking down doors. But, there's no doubt in my mind that if we looked into Comet Ping Pong and, maybe the other businesses, because remember, most of that block is owned by Hillary Clinton and her allies. So, I mean, that alone is just so suspicious.
Yeah, and there's so much, circumstantial evidence around this. I mean, it's even the story of, let's take one of Hillary's aides, basically. This is actually a very prominent and influential LGBTQ, proponent, basically.
Of course, right.
His name is Terry Bean, and he was actually, for a long time, he was actually involved, in fundraisers, both for Obama, also for the Clintons. He's very close with the whole administration. There he is on the right, with Obama, with the Clintons. And he, of course, has been caught. This is a couple of years ago now, having sex with underage girls and boys. I believe it was primarily boys, but he was, anything goes with this guy. And this is, I mean, this shows how close, in terms of proximity, that many of these people are. And it's we tie this together with Epstein, as you said. We tie it together with people like Terry Bean. The fact that these people are giving the Clintons money, they're giving Obama money. This is something which should be taken seriously, and it just isn't. It's a dismissal out of hand because they see it as, this is ridiculous, therefore we're not even going to look at this.
It shouldn't be too surprising. They don't care about the truth. They they clearly have an agenda, and assuming that these kinds of rings, assuming that Clinton, Podesta, Soros, and the rest of their friends are involved in these things, well, you couldn't expect the mainstream media to really give any of this, serious coverage. So we understand why they're kind of doing it, but there are a lot of normies, normal people out there who are, they're pretty much following suit and refusing to engage in any kind of rational inquiry into the matter.
Yeah, we have, of course, showed some of this in a couple of previous videos, but just for those who haven't seen it before, the comments out of the Instagram account of Jimmy Elephantis, Jimmy Comet, much of this, of course, were screen capped and saved, and then later, of course, it was deleted. I think he made his account private and everything else. And again, there's a couple of interviews with James Elephantis, but nothing of this has ever been properly addressed. Even the fact that in an image like that, he's talking about the kill room and the fact that there's, hashtag murder and weird things like this, which is the language, the imagery, the association. I mean, something is seriously wrong with this guy. I mean, we might not be able to pin him directly to, having sex with a child, but something is definitely wrong. And there's reason for us to raise an eyebrow and say something is going on here.
The guy who wrote hashtag kill room on that last picture, I remember people were posting his Instagram too, and he had pictures on there. One of them, I believe, was it was a child-sized coffin that he apparently had built for whatever reason, and it had the comments on it were just really disturbing. I don't know why anyone would be in possession of a child-sized coffin. That's not something you can pick up at a store. That's not something that people generally have use for. And all of this stuff is just really, really disturbing. And it's good to keep in mind too, the fact that James Elephantis was ranked, I forget by the organization, but he was
GQ.
GQ. He was ranked as, what was it, one of the top 50 most powerful people in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
Now, so is his pizza shop really, is the food that good? I don't think the food is that good. I think that there's clearly something more going on there. I mean, people are just willing to write each piece of evidence off, but you have to look at the entire picture. And once again, I'll be the first to say I don't know 100% whether or not that there is a child sex trafficking ring being run through Comet Ping Pong. But the point is, in the spirit of, kind of rational inquiry and trying to find the truth, you don't have to immediately jump to a conclusion. You can say, oh, okay, there's enough evidence here to warrant further investigation. And that's all that we're doing, honestly.
Right.
We're not, none of us are saying James Alefantis is, 100% a pedophile. We need to go in there and
bring an assault rifle and start shooting people.
Right.
No one has said that.
Right,
no one is,
Absolutely not. Yeah. And I think that we on Red Ice have said quite the opposite, frankly. If people want to go in there and like Periscope, that's one thing. Good luck trying to do that now.
Yeah.
But just going in there with a gun is incredibly stupid.
Yeah, exactly. Check a image like this out here. Another one's fun. Come Panda. And this is actually one thing they've used over a CUM, right? Come visit.
Yep.
Panda cum hole, or for the bad language folks, and this is Jimmy comment. When he's interviewed, he was interviewed on NPR, he's been interviewed on CNN. A couple of people have caught him kind of off guard on the street, but none of this by these reporters has been like these softball questions about how he's by default a victim of bullying, basically, without addressing or looking at any of these very incriminating pictures, which is taping down little girls on a table, and he claims that's just done for fun. We do things like this. We just do this at the pizza place, and this is my nephew or something. I think he said there. I don't know. It's so bizarre.
It is bizarre, but once again, one of the top 50 most powerful people in the capital of the most powerful nation ever, honestly. So it's not too surprising that they're going to give him that treatment. He's more powerful than senators, than congressmen, than millionaires, if not billionaires.
Pizza joint.
Right. And not once have they given that oddity, that odd piece of information, any consideration on the media. And I think this is almost a good thing, though. I think that this is only going to further delegitimize the media. Again, even if people don't believe in Pizzagate, people who have kind of looked at the evidence and seen that there is some weird stuff going on, and just seeing that the media is not even like giving it a fair chance. They're not even presenting the evidence. They for so long they've had a monopoly on the dissemination of information and the creation of culture. And I think all of the fake news hysteria that they've been stirring up is really indicative that they are, in their death throes. The media is dying. And they see that, alternative media like Red Ice has kind of broken the spell, and people are starting to really look into matters more, starting to question things, not taking things at face value. They still keep up, the snark and the John Oliver tier, like let's laugh at everything. It trains people to see things as ridiculous, and then not give the matters any consideration. But I think we are seeing that come to an end.
Yeah, I'll show here in a little bit also a demonstration that this goes back a long time. This is just Pizzagate didn't show up out of nowhere as an isolated event. That's also one of the reasons why so many people, specifically with the kind of with a foot in the conspiracy world, if you will, are so concerned about this particular topic, because everything from the Conspiracy of Silence to the Finders, right, which was based out of Washington, D.C., to these rings in England, with Jimmy Savile, people murdered. There's so much else going on here. But let's just catch the rest of the CNN video, because it's just hilarious developments from here.
The extreme fringe right wing has nothing to do with mainstream right wing, just like the 9/11 truthers didn't really have anything to do with the mainstream left wing. So this is a fringe element of the right, just like we have the fringe element of the left.
Well, this is what you end up having when if you start creating a culture and people who are in leadership positions with large bullhorns and millions of Twitter followers start saying things like the mainstream media is terrible. You can't believe anything you hear on TV or read in newspapers. People start to look for alternative sources of information that, frankly, aren't backed up by any investigative reporting. Or
listen to that. I mean, not backed up by any investigative reporting. It's like, wait a minute, that's actually all. It's all investigation. The media is dropping the ball on this, and the main, the reporters in this case are, as you said, they're behind their computers. In some cases, they've even gone to Comet Pizza. They're trying to find out things, while they're
we're
just
actually looking at the evidence, and then and most of us aren't even jumping to conclusions. We're saying evidence seems to suggest this. We should look into it more. That's essentially all. That's my position on this.
Sure, exactly.
Any of the principles of ethical journalism. So this is, in that sense, directly connected to some of the Donald Trump and the conspiracy theorists that have surrounded him. I mean, the new White House senior advisor is going to be Steve Bannon, and Breitbart is also part of the alt-right movement, and these conspiracy theories are often featured on that website.
It's all about association. I love how to do that. It's the alt-right, fake news, Trump, Bannon. It's the whole gambit, basically.
Do you think it's important, though, that Mike Flynn Sr. was actually tweeting about something entirely different? It wasn't Pizzagate,
but it was
another.
It was another child sex ring scandal conspiracy theory.
Part of the larger web.
But it was not. But hold on, Nair, let me point out, though, what he was suggesting actually had some basis in truth. There's a man named Jeffrey Epstein who was convicted of child pornography. Bill Clinton took several flights with this individual, and there were some real questions as to why these flights were not on the books, what happened on these flights.
Are we really going to do this?
Yeah,
Are we really going to go down these fake news rabbit holes?
Look at that. Fake. It's literally, he's calling the Epstein scandal fake news. I mean, this is documented stuff. This is out in the open. It's just amazing.
Yeah, to suggest that a convicted pedophile billionaire might have brought in other people, such as a known sexual deviant and pervert, Bill Clinton, and to even suggest that they might have done weird sex things, in each other's company. I mean, that's again, this is still within the realm of speculation. We don't know 100%, but when you figure the truth out about something, generally you spend a lot of time in that kind of zone, the realm of uncertainty when you're still trying to figure things out. And that's what they're trying to say. It's like, it's either you have to say something is 100% right, like right away without looking into it, or, it's not worth going into, right? That's essentially what they're telling us.
Yeah, I mean, Epstein even has, he has an island, as you say, that they go to. I mean, there's images of this thing. There's like a temple on his island, weird stuff. I mean, this is just, and he's convicted. This guy, people have gone to his island. There's records of people flying. They found this little black book, as they call it. They detail all of this stuff. And for this tweet on CNN to sit there and say that this is fake news, I mean, it's just, oh my God. I mean, they're falling very hard, to be honest.
Yeah, and Michael Flynn Jr. Obviously not the general. They're still putting out articles. I saw a number of them today, alleging that he was supporting Pizzagate. What he was talking about, as the conservative woman was trying to say, was that Epstein has been convicted of pedophilia, and he was hanging out with Bill Clinton on these flights. So like, what was really going on? That would still be contained within the greater kind of, elite pedophile network. But it's not Pizzagate. Again, they're trying to tie Pizzagate into something that, to Flynn and then to Trump and so on and so forth. Ultimately, all of this is, it's a good chance for them to try to pin something on Trump. I think it's going to backfire, just like, all of the various scandals, like the Lewandowski scandal, all of that backfired. So it's not going to hurt Trump. We don't need to worry about that. It's only going to further delegitimize the mainstream. But yeah, it is. It's as soon as you deviate from the realm of what is considered to be real news, I guess. I don't even know if they use that term, but it's just a good way of shutting it down, putting up the stop sign so that people, the millions of people watching. I don't even know if millions of people watch CNN anymore, but hopefully not. It's a good way of just putting up the stop sign, be like, hey, guy on the couch drinking a beer, you don't need to look into this. Laugh at it with us. Laugh at next time your friend starts bringing this up, you can just call him a conspiracy theorist. And you get to feel important because, the smart people on the TV screen are telling you the right opinions.
Yeah, we've vetted this stuff for you so you don't have to. Just believe us. That's effectively what they're saying.
Exactly. And you know what? That's exactly what they said with WikiLeaks. They said, and remember, folks, this was on CNN. Remember, folks, it's illegal to look at these leaked documents. So, just come and, turn on CNN and we'll parse them for you. Yeah. And you wonder why people don't trust the media anymore. It's absolutely absurd.
Yes, it is. Let's check out the finale here of the CNN piece, which, of course, culminates in this very issue we're talking about right now.
They are two separate things.
Again, trying to parse all of this information about this connection with that connection. This is exactly how conspiracies start, and this is exactly the type of logic and reasoning that we need to all be working against and start working with facts. I mean, this is a post-fact universe that we're working in.
This is a post-fact universe that we are working on.
They haven't provided a single fact on Pizzagate.
I mean, if you're
they
isolated,
haven't provided a single piece of evidence that would even begin to convince me that their opinion is right. They did no debunking. At least during the campaign, they tried to fact check. They put the effort forth of fact checking this. I mean, they ended up delegitimizing themselves doing that too, because most of their fact checks about Trump were hilariously false. But yeah, it's like they have no sense of self-awareness. What they're saying completely goes against everything that they're doing right there. And just kind of building off of that, there's a scientist by the name of Emily Willingham who proposed that we apply the scientific method to news, and her motivation for doing that was to crack down on the fake news epidemic. And so she wrote here that her recommended steps are observe, question, hypothesize, analyze data, draw conclusion, act on results. Okay, that's exactly what we are doing here with Pizzagate and kind of in general in the alt-right, in alternative media. We're kind of putting aside these notions of what is ridiculous and totally couldn't happen and what's politically incorrect. We're putting all that to a side and we're engaging in rational inquiry. We're looking at evidence. We're trotting carefully. We're not jumping to conclusions. But if you start looking at those those clips from this CNN piece, they didn't do any of that. They didn't do any of this, this method that the scientists proposed to combat fake news. So, I mean, that's the whole irony of all of this. It's like CNN in the mainstream media, they are fake news. They push fake news.
Yeah, they're insulated from any kind of outside influence, really, and they've surrounded themselves just with it's an echo chamber, basically, and whatever we discuss internally here, that's what gives. Well, exactly, that is true. It is an echo chamber. That is true. I mean, it is remarkable that they basically don't see this issue. Basically, also connecting the dots is now. I mean, I've seen that in countless movies about conspiracies and conspiracy theories. You have the guy with the big wall, of like photos and articles, and he's like drawing lines and connecting things, and and that's the crime in itself. Or are you trying to discover something here, Goy? What are you doing? It's like don't overthink this too much now. It's actually very much more simpler than this. Right?
Yeah. She's using hand gestures like, when you take things and you start connecting them together, then that's how you end up with fake news. It's like, well, I mean, that kind of sounds like like you said, isn't that what detectives do when they're trying to get to the bottom of a case? They take
find
a piece of evidence. Right, and not all of those end up being true. But I mean, the point is, as long as you're not charging into Comet Pizza shooting people, then it's I mean, I think that's pretty warranted. And especially once again going back to the fact that pedophilia is just the most disgusting and inhumane thing. These people need to be removed from society in one way or another, legally, of course, after a nice long legal trial. But I mean, the point being is that I hope everyone on any side of the political spectrum can agree that this is like the worst thing. We're not once again, we're not like looking into, we're not getting this into, kind of a fringe investigation into some guy selling weed out of, Comet Pizza.
Right.
Whatever. Right. If that was that, then it'd be like
very serious here. It's, I mean, what's at stake, serious. Right? Yeah, exactly. The violation of children sexually. I mean, that's the worst of the worst. And the fact that they're not even lending and trying to take that association seriously shows just how deranged they are and how wicked and evil they are in their own ignorance and in their own stupidity to not touch this subject.
Absolutely.
Let's look at the rest here of the CNN piece.
Should Trump, though, bear some responsibility himself to say, enough? I don't believe even in private to tell these people, stop with this. I don't want to see a tweet like this. I don't want to see these things. They're lies and they're hateful. Doesn't he bear some of that responsibility?
Does President Obama have the responsibility to say, I disavow the 9/11 truthers? No, because he doesn't have to go around disavowing every single conspiracy theory because they're fringe left-wing people. And Naira, your party has gone around with false narratives of Trump is a racist, Trump is a xenophobe with no basis in truth. So we want to talk about conspiracy theories and outlandish gossipy sort of stories. Your party's responsible for it.
Sure, let's talk about what happened actually just in my neighborhood. So Comet Pizza is only a couple of blocks away from me, so this is very personal. But actually a few blocks in the other direction, you had, 2 weeks ago, a bunch of white supremacists who held an event and said, Heil Trump. Now this is actually...
Hey, she's talking about us right there. How about that?
Yeah. That was a great event, by the way. And,
yes.
And once again, they say, they the fact that they're saying Heil Trump, H-E-I-L, the German word, hail, H-A-I-L, is an English word that obviously means the same thing. But I mean, Richard said hail. It's
not
they're
Heil.
trying to make it. That's a huge spin that they're putting on it.
Right.
Trump's new backyard, not something he's disavowed. That's even happened in his own neighborhood. We haven't seen any time the KKK endorsed him or David Duke or any of these white supremacists were advocating on his behalf. He never said, I disassociate myself from these people.
Yeah, he did several times. Yep, several times.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, and once again, and she said that he didn't disavow the white supremacist conference. He did disavow the alt-right after that happened. It was bound to happen sooner or later. When you have a reporter asking you, like, do you disavow these people, Heil-ing and saying Hail Trump, he's just going to be like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, what is he going to do at that point?
And I think they kept pressing it, and he was like, wow, you're really concerned about this issue.
Yeah, you're into this, aren't you? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's
right,
so the hardly a disconnect to say that by when he has people who are supporting him actively and campaigning for him, if he doesn't disavow them, it seems like they are part of
Let me give the final word here to Brian.
I was going to say about this issue of Twitter, for a man who's so well known for tweeting, who has such a great grasp of the medium, he hasn't even bothered tweeting about Oakland today. Never mind this issue about what happened at Comet Ping Pong. Never mind the broader issue about racism and about hate and harassment.
This guy, Brian Stelter, I think his name is, he has a show on CNN called Reliable Sources, where his very task is to dig deep into some of these issues to find out what's behind the story, what's the credibility, and the fact that they wheel this guy out to say that the Epstein claim is fake truly shows the quality of CNN 2016 and how. And here we have the reasoning why they are utterly failing in their viewership and tanking right now.
Absolutely, yeah. They've got him on there saying that the Epstein thing is, fake news, rabbit hole. I think that was the colorful phrase that he used. And then you've got the girl to the right saying that Trump never disavowed the NPI conference, which he did, that he never disavowed Duke in the KKK. He did that multiple times. So, I mean, I almost like the fact that they are doing that they are stooping to this level, because it makes our jobs far easier. This is incredibly easy to point out how disingenuous and deceitful they are. So I hope that CNN continues to behave like idiots.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things I wanted to address here as well is about the issue of the history of some of this stuff. There is a very important book that was written, I actually forget when, I think this is 80s, if I'm not mistaken, late 80s, the Franklin cover-up, which went into some of the details about what actually was going on in Nebraska. It was going into the child abuse issue, Satanism, and murders and cover-ups and all these kinds of things. And it was written by John DeCamp, as I said, who was a former veteran, highly decorated veteran, and then later he ended up in a position of being a lawyer, and he started investigating some of these claims. There was even a documentary made called Conspiracy of Silence. I just wanted to show a couple of clips from that so you guys can get an idea that, again, this is not something that just now surfaced. This is people, I mean, since I started the show in 2006, the radio show, we've covered stuff like this from the get-go. The very issue of the Franklin Scandal, which is kind of like a follow-up book that Nick Bryant wrote, went deep into the investigations of Lawrence King, one of these. It was a black American who was he came out of the Republican environment in Nebraska, but he was highly tied into the elite network of all the way up to the White House, basically supplying specifically young boys, but also girls. But these boys came out of Boys Town, of all places, which was a refuge.
Yeah, what a name.
Exactly, Boys Town, literally. That's where they got the boys from, Boys Town. So it was there to protect, take care of, orphaned boys and things like this. And this became a supply line to them. So this has deep roots. It's been going on for decades. Let's just watch a few clips from the Conspiracy of Silence, and you can get an idea of what actually was going on here. There's some pretty horrific, testimony in this too. So be warned of that.
It's a web of intrigue that starts in our Holy of Holies, Boys Town, Nebraska, one of the most respected institutions in the United States, and spreads out like a spider web to Washington, D.C., right up to the steps of the nation's capital, the steps of the White House. Involves some of the most respected and powerful and richest businessmen in this United States of America. And the centerpiece of the entire web is the use of children for sex and drug dealing and drug couriers, the compromising of politicians, the compromising of businessmen, but worst of all, the corruption of key institutions of government that have the duty and responsibility to make sure these things never happen.
Media personality Peter Citron procured some of his victims from Boys Town.
The kids he liked were mainly around the age of probably about 8 and 13. It was mainly fondling and oral sex with him. He did have some anal sex, but he usually did that with the older kids.
Alan Bear was a sick fuck. Didn't care, wanted sex, nasty, I don't even know if you can call it sex, and take it any way he can get it, pay for it, he liked to, but if he had to take it by force, he would. Larry King was the same kind of sick fuck Alan Bear was, except Larry King was more violent, more sure of himself, I would, see him fuck a 10-year-old boy in the ass, until he bled, and, just pull out and stop, and, push him down, and then go out and, meet with decent people.
King would also provide underage girls for abuse.
It was incredible. It's incredible what these kids went through, I think.
I was shocked when I walked in. There was a kid, I would say about 15 years old, out in the middle of the room. One guy was standing in front of him. He was bent over, and the other guy was like reaching under him, playing with his nipples, while a guy whom Jeff told me was a police officer shoving beads up his rectum.
The police officer was shoving beads up his rectum?
Yes.
4 years on, Boys Town remains unwilling to discuss its involvement with Larry King. We asked for an interview with Chief Executive Father Val Peter, but Boys Town's public affairs officer refused.
I would have to give you a flat no. I'm just going to tell you at this point that we will not participate with you. We have no interest in talking to you folks. It's something that we don't even care to delve into.
By the spring of 1989, so serious were the child abuse allegations before the Franklin Committee that its chairman, Lawrence Schmidt, sought the advice of his lawyer, John DeCamp. He told Schmidt to turn over all the evidence to the FBI. Immediately, the videotaped testimony was leaked to a hostile media.
The media immediately started discrediting the witnesses. The witnesses came across in the media, in the Omaha World Herald, especially, as the criminals.
The last 3 victim witnesses were demolished by the press, particularly the Omaha World Herald. The paper never looked for information that would support any of the allegations. The whole purpose of the stories was to destroy any credibility that these youth may have.
I was very disappointed with the way the FBI and law enforcement treated the victims. They, in fact, turned them into the offenders, so to speak. And instead of taking the evidence that was delivered to them by the victims and interrogating the persons whom the victims identified, they seemed to bear down and try to get the victims to change their story.
For John DeCamp, the story of Larry King's corrupt empire holds a dire warning for America.
If you can control about 3 or 4 key elements, you can totally own a state. You can make right wrong. You can make truth falsehood, falsehood truth. If you control the media, if you control the Justice Department, if you control the police, you own the system.
Yeah, so that point is extremely important. So this is like, late 80s, and it's out of Nebraska, but it goes all the way up to the halls of the White House, from Washington, D.C. And it's interesting that the same thing seems to happen back then as it is now. There's a shaming, in fact, of those the people who are talking and speaking out about this. They're using the media, they're using the whole establishment to turn this on its head and basically say that this is not true. And I mean, even in a court of law, you can hear a witness, and that's actually credible information, And in this case, they're just dismissing the witness. I mean, Reinhard, we don't have, in this case, as far as we know, we don't have any witnesses or victims directly that has come out and talked about oh yes, I was abused at Comet Ping Pong, or they snatched me there or something, and then this went deeper, or they kidnapped me from this place or something. We don't have that yet. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I mean, keep in mind how many kids actually disappear each year from America. There's even actually specifically some statistics out of Virginia alone, which comes from the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, that actually states that Virginia has by far the highest number of missing kids per capita in the nation. So, it's competing with states like, California and Florida, but there's vastly more people in these states than in Virginia, who has about a little bit over 8 million people. So something is amiss with the situation. It's very interesting, and these kids are coming from somewhere. And I bet you, if investigations continue, it's just a matter of time before someone is going to speak out to manage to get away from this thing. So the last thing I want to touch on here is basically the some more information that supposedly had come out recently about some hacking groups supposedly got access to information in some way. Again, I don't know how credible any of this is, but it's very interesting. It was basically an instruction. So supposedly this was an app that was developed, and it was tied to the whole code word for pizza and everything else. We don't know if this is strictly tied to Comet Ping Pong, but the language in this thing is brutal. It says, last month's satisfied customers were raving about our, quote, pizza, and we know you will too. Repeat customers know the drill. For newcomers, and it's like spelled with a C-U again, first run the program given to you by your special friend, and all instructions on how to enjoy this joyous hobby will be easily understandable, but please remember the penalties for breaking the rules, which are also included in the program. We have very few have broken the rules, and needless to say, the penalties are harsh. All principles is included in the app. The app will only run once, and the following requirements must be met. The app is to be run from your own personal computer that only you have access to. Your computer must be connected to the internet when run. The app must be run from your home. You must destroy the media on which you receive the app. Remember, the password will activate the app, as there will be no icons on your computer. November's specials, and listen to this language here, and keep in mind the Podesta emails with all these code words that we've been talking about: cheese, pizza, hot dogs, pasta, all these weird kind of code words that have been broken down now by so many people. And it says, this month we have 5 fresh pizzas for your enjoyment. We also have 4 surviving pizzas from last month's session. All are on sale at an extremely low price, as they are in poor health and not expected to survive. So the requirement is that you finish eating your pizza after your session. This month's specials includes a 30% discount on severe torture. I mean, that's kind of, the language is so bizarre at that point. Severe torture. Each image below is available for 1,000 in fine print. There is issues like stenography, which is basically, these pedophile networks have found different ways of like actually embedding images into other images and things like that. You're basically given a code, and then you can, deconstruct data basically, and this is how some of these pedophiles have shared, information online. But let's just return to that point as a final thing, Reinhardt, that what we're talking about here is accusations of the worst kind, and it's children at the end of the day. And if it's true, some of these allegations, we're not only talking about brutal, sexual abuse, it's torture, it's murder in some cases. There's these allegations. I have difficulty, to be honest, to wrap my head around this and to actually believe this is true. But we have so many stories for such a long time about this that I have to take it seriously,
Yeah, no, it's happening out there right now as we speak. The question is whether or not Comet Pizza is involved in it, frankly. And based on the evidence, I think it's quite likely.
Thanks so much for joining us here today, ladies and gentlemen. We'll keep you updated on the story as it goes. Thank you for watching. Red Ice TV is the website. We'll see you later.
Get your Red Ice t-shirt today, made by Lanus Llama, sewn in the USA using 100% organic cotton fabric. Available for both men and women in many sizes. Support what we do and enjoy a soft organic t-shirt made without the harsh chemicals. Go to redice.tv/store.